Hello everyone, this is Sam, and today I want to talk about psychedelic mushrooms and how it is possible to heal or look at emotional pain in a better way. And I'm drawing from my own experience in telling this, and I'm actually just portraying my own experience and want to share this with you so that you have the possibility to either try it out or do some research on that stuff, because there's actually a lot of research going on and been going on in the last decade. So when I talk about looking at emotional pain or actually also healing emotional trauma with psychedelic mushrooms, the most outstanding aspect of the magic mushroom is that what it does to me is actually creates this feeling of safety, or of being completely safe with my emotions. And I don't know how this happened, or if I just build up the connection with the magic mushroom so that this would happen, or that I feel so safe in doing it, because I can actually be in a really shitty place, like being completely triggered, or feeling emotionally totally vulnerable or so, and I can still do magic mushrooms and then feel safe and actually be able to look at the emotions. I did this a few times, but not so many. So I'm not actually proposing you to do this if you feel triggered or emotionally vulnerable to do magic mushrooms. I'm just kind of like bringing up it for an example, what I mean by this. So oftentimes when I'm sober and I've been triggered, or I'm feeling in a vulnerable place, or I don't know what's going on and I still feel like intensely emotional or whatever, then most of the time it just feels too dangerous to actually look at the emotion itself or to actually feel it, because that's, yeah, if you know a bit about developmental trauma theory, it's quite obvious why this happens, because in the time that these emotions actually have been suppressed, it would feel deadly, or it would feel really dangerous to actually feel them. So for example, if you've been a child and you had a need that wasn't met correctly by your surroundings, by your environment, by your parents, whatever, then you would go through these stages of protest. And first it would be sadness, like crying, to get the attention from the adults so they can actually fulfill your need. But if that doesn't happen, then you would go further to the stage of anger, and after that there would come rage, and all that is trying to fulfill or to get the attention so your need can be fulfilled. And if that doesn't happen, then you would go into resignation. So you would actually suppress your all the feelings that came before that. So you would suppress the anger, the rage, and the sadness, and you would also suppress the need, because it would feel too painful to actually feel the need, knowing that it will never be fulfilled. So you actually suppress it, and that's how developmental trauma happens in a really basic and simply explained way. So when these things get triggered, so if I, for example, now feel in a position where this need comes back up, or I feel triggered into the rage or the anger or the sadness that surrounds that need, that was surrounding that need in the first place, it actually feels too dangerous, because my subconscious mind is like drawing back on the experience from my childhood, telling me, okay, no, you shouldn't feel this anger, this rage, this fear, this sadness, whatever, or the initial need, because that can lead to death. In this very childlike and very instinctive way of thinking that I was used to when I, or that I, there wasn't another option. So this thinking that I used when I was in this position in the first place, so when I was a child. So this is what happens when I feel this stuff in my sober way. And what magic mushrooms actually do to me is it creates this safe space, sort of like a feeling of safety, in which I'm able to look at the feelings more completely. And it's kind of like if you ever experienced a group process, where you're sitting with a group with all your stuff, and you just explore what it means to be you yourself in that group. What happens is the group actually creates a bigger intelligence, like a group intelligence. And also because you have multiple nervous systems that can hold emotional charge or emotional release, you are more safe to express yourself more fully. So you go through a process of building up the trust with the group, and as soon as the trust is there, the security is there, the safeness is there in the group, you're actually able to express way more things from yourself, from your inner workings, and also you're able to hold way more of this stuff. You're able to feel way more into what it means to be you. And this is because these nervous systems from the other people are actually able to level out whatever it is that you weren't able to level out. So there's this guy from Sweden. He's called Buster. I don't know his last name. I forgot. But he's doing this, or he's leading this enterprise. It's called Embodied Intimacy. And what he says about trauma, it's pretty simple, but it's also very good description. It's being alone with too much. So that's exactly what happens. It's you as a child are being alone with too much charge. Your nervous systems can't hold this much charge in the first place. So you actually, it feels like dying. It feels like a complete overload. So you have to suppress this charge so you can survive. So you store it in your body. There's the energetic aspect of emotional trauma, as you store energy in your body. And as soon as you're with a group, you can actually release or actually even look at this energetic charge in your system, and also the feelings that are connected to it, because there are more nervous systems that can handle this stuff. So you're no longer alone with too much. You're with other people with too much. And these other people are actually able to hold what is too much for you. And the funny thing is that as an adult, you're actually able to hold way more than you were able to hold as a child. So the problem is not actually that you're not able to hold it, but that you think you can't hold it. Because what your subconscious is doing is it's drawing back on the experience from your childhood, meaning that it tells you it's completely dangerous and you will die if you feel this stuff ever again. But that's not actually the truth. It's just what was stored in your memory from the childhood. And with other people, you have the safety to actually show up with everything you stored in your body and in your memory and in your emotional reactions. And you can then release it because there are people that are supporting you. And it's sort of the same thing that is happening when I do psychedelic mushrooms. So it creates this kind of like a third person view in a way. So I'm not alone with my stuff. I'm sitting with my stuff with the magic mushroom. And this might sound weird if you've never done it, but if you try it, it feels a lot like a presence. Especially in higher doses, it feels a lot like a presence. And what it does is also it creates this sort of distance to it. And I don't mean like distance of abstraction distance. So it doesn't abstract the feelings into a sort of concept. That's not what it does. It's you can feel it more deeply, and at the same time it feels like the emotion is not everything there is. Like for a lot of the times when I'm sober and I'm triggered into something, it feels like everything is connected to that emotion, and everything triggers me back into that emotion. And it's really hard to get the distance to that emotion so I can actually see what's going on in the present moment and get out of the triggered state to actually see what's going on and what's the dynamic behind it, and also what's the feeling that is kind of like encapsulated in that dynamic. So this is really hard when I'm sober, a lot of the times, especially when I'm triggered very hard. But what the magic mushroom does is it creates this distance in a way of a third person view somehow. But it's at the same time you feel it completely, like you can feel your emotions very deeply. So that's a very interesting aspect. And it also, like what I said, with a group, there are other people that are also giving you feedback, for example, and helping you to dig deeper or to get into more detailed view of what is going on with you, and you can feel more aspects of the dynamic with other people, because they have these viewpoints that you don't have, and they share their experience, or they share what they're feeling in connection with you at that present moment when you were going into a certain emotion. And that's really helpful to create a more detailed view, and also a more more distanced view to what's going on inside of you. And the magic mushroom does that too. So it has also sort of a point of view, which you can use to get a more detailed view of what's going on. Yeah. So this is kind of the knowledge part of what happens on magic mushroom, like how you can gain more insight and why this happens, from my point of view. Like I can't explain why this happens or why magic mushroom has a presence, but I can kind of like build analogies to how we can see it, the same thing in the real world. Real world. Yeah. And then there's another aspect that I also want to point out, which is it's not just you can't just gain insight on psychedelic substances. There's also the possibility to actually release stuff from your subconscious mind or from your body while being on a trip. And what I did, or what I'm using, is I kind of trained my body to go into a shaking state, where it actually releases this energetic aspect of the emotional trauma that happened. So the stuff, the energy that is stored in the body, in the nervous system, is kind of like shaked out by the nervous system itself in a intuitive or in a like instinctive way. Like I'm not controlling this; it's just happening. And how I got to train my body to do this is I used a technique. It's called TRE. It was developed by an American guy. I forgot his name actually. I have to check it again. But there's this guy who was working with the people who experienced war, and also like other environmental traumatic experiences, like stuff that would leave you very traumatized, like shock trauma. And he was using a technique where you overuse your psoas muscle. It's a muscle in the pelvic area for a certain amount of time, like it's mostly 1 minute or so or less, and then you lie on your back, and it's actually starting your nervous system starts to shake in a instinctive way, or in a uncontrollable way, like not uncontrollable as uncomfortable, but you don't do anything, it just happens to you, sort of. And what it does is it allows your nervous system to actually shake off the excess energy. And this is, you can use this for just for tension, like, or for everyday stress. But if you do it over a prolonged period of time, it actually gets to the places of more deeply rooted, or more deeply seated excess energy. For example, from coming from a developmental trauma. Yeah, so I use this technique, and when I do this in a normal state, it's really relaxing. And it's also, sometimes I'm kind of getting images, or I can see or sense what it could be about, like what the shaking at this moment expresses. And I can also feel into the emotions that are connected to this shaking sensation that is happening at that time. But what happens on magic mushrooms or on psychedelic mushrooms is that there's first emotion, like first I feel deeply what's happening to me at this moment, or what is important to me at this moment. And out of that comes spontaneously starting shaking sensation. Like I just out of the feeling, I can actually go into TRE directly, and then I shake out the energetic aspect of this traumatic experience that I was having as a child. And as I see it, there's like two aspects to early childhood trauma, or emotional trauma. And one aspect is the energetic charge that is just stored in your body. That's what the excess energy that was in your nervous system. And then there's, on the other hand, there's also like this emotional charge, and of course they're connected, but at the same time you can actually get to, or no, they're actually, they're the same thing. They're different aspects from the same thing, but it depends on where you want to start or where you want to get into your experience, like how you want to get it, how you want to get at it. And when you want to get at it from the emotional experience, it's often quite hard because you have to fight through these mental blockages that you have, or like the subconscious resistance you have towards feeling this stuff. So it's quite a work to do. And I find if you start from the energetic charge, from your bodily sensation, it's easier to do it, because you can actually allow your body, for example with TRE, to shake off a lot of the energetic charge, and showing it that it's okay to express itself in that way. And that creates kind of like the safety for then going into the emotional charge, that is also of course a part of this whole thing that is stuck in your subconscious and in your body. So as long as you don't have the safety around you, for example in a group or given with psychedelic mushrooms, if you get to that state of experience, then it's way easier to start out with the energy that is stored in your body, like this excess energy in your nervous system, and then go from there towards the emotional charge that is actually stored. But if you do have the safety, you can actually go directly to the emotional charge that is stored within this excess energy in your nervous system. And by releasing the emotional charge, you're actually also releasing the excess energy in your nervous system. But it needs the safety in the first place to be able to do that. So when I do this on psychedelic mushrooms, I first start with the emotions. I feel the emotions, and then it actually starts spontaneously to shake off the energetic equivalent in my body, in my nervous system. Yeah, that's a very interesting aspect also to what is possible on magic mushrooms, to not just see things and learn more about yourself and about your dynamics, but also actually really start to get rid of the excess energy, and show your body and your subconscious mind that it's okay to feel this, and that you at this moment as an adult actually have the possibility to hold whatever is in your experience and in your subconscious mind. Like, these emotions don't kill you, and also the energetic charge won't kill you, but there's so much fear and resistance around these energetic and emotional experiences from the past that we kind of have to train ourselves or learn anew that we are actually able to hold it. And that also creates the space around these emotions that we then can use to, free ourselves up for a lot more things. We are no longer stuck in this traumatic experience, or in the surviving of this traumatic experience, because we taught our body and mind that it's actually okay to feel it and to be with it. And that again makes us the masters of our lives, like not the servants of a past experience. Because what happens if you do that is that you're actually learning your nervous system and your subconscious mind a new way of being. So first you realize what it's about, you see the dynamic for what it is, you understand what was going on in the past that made you behave in a certain way, and when you understand it, you can actually create yourself the space or the safety around this dynamic, so you can actually move through the feelings, emotions, and the energetic charge that is stored in your body. And what then happens if you're able to release this emotional charge and the energetic blueprint around that dynamic that was stored in your body, is that your whole reality changes. Like, you're actually able to change how you perceive reality by releasing these emotional and energetic charges that have been built up by developmental trauma or any other trauma that was happening in the past, because you can get rid of the survival mechanisms that keep you in this certain reality where you have to fight for your survival, or where you have to suppress certain needs, certain feelings, and certain attitudes that were dangerous for you in the past. So as soon as you change your mindset, you change how you perceive your feelings, and then you can change how you express these feelings or behave with these feelings. And as soon as you're able to release them fully and express them fully, their intention is actually fulfilled. So they're no longer needed. And what that makes is a lot of relaxation comes through your whole body, and you start to actually live rather than survive.